Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Haas from nichepursuits.com. And of course, I have with me my co-host, Perrin. Perrin, how you doing?
Pretty good. How's it going, everybody?
Awesome. We're back at it. It feels like it's been a while. In fact, it has been a little while. Many of you listening may not know, but I was on vacation for a bit and hadn't been recording any podcasts here with Perrin, so it's good to get back in the saddle and start recording again. We had recorded several guest podcast interviews ahead of schedule, so I was releasing those. So hopefully you enjoyed your weekly Niche Pursuits podcast, even though I wasn't around. So thank you everyone for listening if you did. Today we have what I think will be an interesting discussion because way back in early 2013 I started what has really become the most popular series of posts on my blog. I started the Niche Site Project. And what the Niche Site Project was, it was a project where I built a niche site from scratch and revealed my entire process. I revealed the domain name, the earnings, and everything that I did to make this site rank in Google and start making money. And because I was so detailed in my blog posts and everything, people really love this. And so if you're listening, you're probably familiar with that niche site project that I did. But if not, you can go over to nichepursuits.com/case studies, and that will give you both the first niche site project and the second niche site project, which was also very successful. But I built a site on survival knives. I targeted the keyword best survival knife, and the domain name was bestsurvivalknifeguide.com. And it did quite well, right, Perrin?
Yeah, it did wonderfully. That's what got me reading your site in the first place.
That's true. That's a good point. It had a broad enough reach that it got somebody like Perrin away from his video games and to read my blog. No, so it did quite well in the fact that not only did it start ranking in Google, within just a few months, it also was earning about $800 a month at its peak. So I launched the project, like I said, in late January of 2013, and by September 2013, it was making $800 a month. Unfortunately, the project did not go as planned, and the site, needless to say, tanked in the rankings, and a lot has happened since. And so this podcast, we're going to dive into what happened. It's going to be a discussion on negative SEO, how to potentially come back from negative SEO, and some very interesting things that give me some hope for my survival knife site right now. Some interesting things that have just happened earlier this week. So let's jump right into it. So, like I said, the site by September 2013 was earning about $800 a month.
Now it was 4 months or so, or 5 months maybe, after we started or after you started the site.
Yeah, so that's right. So I'm looking at my chart here. Basically, in February, when I was just first building the site, it didn't earn anything. It had its first earnings in March of 2013. And then, July and August, it was about $700 to $800 in earnings. And then September, it was its highest of, I'm not sure I have the exact number, but a little over $800 a month. So only 5-6 months after creating the site, it was up there and doing very well. But I detected early on in March 2013, only a couple of months after I created the site, that there were a lot of really strange links pointing to my site. And they were links that I had not built or asked anybody to build, and they were very spammy. And so I'm looking at a chart that shows all of the referring links to my site on Ahrefs. That's a service. It's the letter A, H, refs. Anyways, if people are curious, they can leave a comment. I'm not sure if I said that well. ahrefs.com. And it is showing a huge spike in March of 2013 of over 5,000 links.
Yep.
And then another huge spike in September of basically another 5,000 links pointing to my site. No way did I build all those. And as I did some research, I saw that not only were they coming from spammy pages, but they were all using my exact match anchor text of Best Survival Knife.
Yeah.
And so in March, when I originally discovered that, it was pretty heartbreaking. I was like, oh, man, that hurts. That is not a good thing. But what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I will say that the disavow links function of Google had just recently come out the previous year, and I had never used it before, and so I had thought about using it, but I thought, I've read everywhere that Google is supposed to be really good about detecting not unnatural links, but links that are clearly not from me, that yes are unnatural, but they're good at weeding out what's a real link and what is not a good link. And so I decided, I'm going to trust Google, that they're going to realize that these are bad links that I don't want, and they're not going to value them. And that held true for about 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't see any penalty from that, and I kept seeing this huge spike in links, nothing happening, and I thought, boy, I'm in the clear. As I take a drink of water. But I was not in the clear. I have a chart here showing in early October of 2013, my site traffic tanked.
Yeah.
It dropped significantly, and that does coincide with the Penguin 2.0 release, or 2.1, or I don't remember what version exactly. So it was a change in Google, but it was clearly my site was penalized because of all the spammy links, right? So Google adjusted their algorithm to look at links a little bit closer and detect what's spammy and perhaps overuse of anchor text. And they said, well, boy, here's Spencer. He's got 10,000 spammy links all using Best Survival Knife. We better penalize that site.
Yeah.
So sure enough, my site tanked, and it stayed that way for a long time. And so that's what we're going to dive into. Do you have any thoughts on that? What happened up to that point when my site first got hit there?
No, I mean, I think it might be valuable for me to share my own story because it was so similar.
Yeah, please do.
So I've been pretty lucky, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm really unlucky. But the second site I built was also attacked with negative SEO. And I don't think it was anybody attacking me, but it was in a slightly spammy niche. It wasn't gambling or porn or casinos or anything. But it was in a slightly spammy niche, and it was doing really well. I think after 4 months, it was at $500 a month or something. And the exact same thing happened to me. I got I think 2 rounds of 5,000 or 6,000 spammy links with exact match anchor text. And for me, it was even a lot sooner. It was, I think, 3 weeks or so after that happened that my site just totally died. And at that point, we had been tinkering with the Survival Knife site for a while, and it was starting to appear to us as if it just wasn't worth bothering with, But I don't know. It's a really interesting case study, and it's a really tough thing to deal with as a site builder, which I think is why this is getting so much engagement on Niche Pursuit's site, because it seems just really easy, that someone can point a bunch of links at your site and take it down whenever they want for maybe $100, you know?
Yeah,
So,
it is. It's a scary thought, and a lot of people have made that comment of, what do I do? I'm so worried that somebody's going to attack my site with negative SEO.
yeah.
And it's happened to you, it's happened to me. I will say that this is the first time it's ever happened to me. That I've built, 200 plus niche sites, and never before has this happened. So I have made the assumption, I think it's probably true in my case, probably not in your case, but in my case, I think it happened because this is a public case study on nichepursuits.com.
Yeah.
So many people reading it, and some less intelligent person probably decided, hey, I'm going to send a bunch of spammy links to this site. Anyway, somebody probably got the idea because they were reading it publicly on my blog. So I think for the most part, 99.9% of people probably, and I hope, will never have to deal with negative SEO.
Yeah, and it's for good reason, too. And, I've talked to SEO professionals here in Chicago, and we also talked to Rand Fishkin, CEO of Moz, who don't even think SEO or negative SEO is real because they just don't see it ever, And the reason is, and one of the reasons I think people don't really have to be worried about it, before we get into what specifically is happening with our site, maybe just to assuage some of the fears that people might have, that there's no real benefit to doing SEO to one of your competitors aside from just the satisfaction of being a jerk, if that's your thing, It's not going to make you more money. You're not going to, ranking one spot more for one keyword is not going to, seriously drive the profit of your business or anything. So there's no real incentive to do this, and I don't think people need to be that scared, your competitors don't have any real reason to be doing this. So I guess that's something to mention.
Yep, no, I totally agree. And so, that's sort of our thoughts there. I actually went ahead and one of my readers volunteered to do a deep link analysis to really see what was going on, why my site tanked, to see if there was any other reason there. And so I had somebody come on and do a guest post on nichepursuits.com. They used the link detox tool from Link Research Tools. And basically they found exactly what I just said, that there were tons of spammy links coming from low authority places, overusing anchor text, and that's most likely the reason for the penalty. And so the solution, according to this person, was to take all of those less valuable links, spammy links, and insert them into a Disavow links file and submit that to Webmaster Tools. And so in, I don't remember the exact day, I wish I did, but it was close to January, January 2014, end of 2013, I submitted this Disavow links file to Webmaster Tools, and I crossed my fingers, saying, I hope this works. And, it didn't work, at least right away. I waited, so I got the penalty in October. I waited until basically February 2014, so about 4 months I waited, but nothing happened. The traffic kept going down and down and down. I decided I'm going to change the domain name. I'm going to move all the content, move to a new domain to try and avoid this penalty. And I had talked to a lot of different people that I know, and they said, yep, we've done that before. You move your domain and 301 redirect, so the old site becomes the new site. And I did that. So I changed my domain name to pointofsurvival.com. And I moved all the content and did a 301 redirect. Well, there was basically no result. The traffic was exactly the same, and no penalty was lifted. And that makes perfect sense, because if you do a 301 redirect, that redirects all the links. And so all of the links were redirected, including all the spammy links. No penalty was lifted. I was left with the same result. And so that was a little depressing, and I kind of kicked myself and said, well, why did I do that? I don't want to move all the links. So I took another drastic step. I went ahead and decided to get another new domain and moved all of the content. Well, before I moved all of the content, I actually de-indexed my two old domains, bestsurvivalknifeguide.com and pointofsurvival.com. I de-indexed those using Webmaster Tools. There's an option there where you can delete those domains from Google. And I did that within 24 hours. I removed those URLs from the index. And I did that so that Google wouldn't hit me with any sort of duplicate content penalty. And in fact, I waited a couple of months. I de-indexed, waited a couple of months, put all of the old content onto a third new domain, but I did not do a 301 redirect. So I was left with all of the same content, but none of the old links.
Yeah, and we did chase down some of the old links that we knew were good.
Yes.
So, and that was just a process of contacting the webmasters and saying, like, hey, can we, well, our content is at a new address. Can you point the link that way? And it wasn't super successful, but we did get a handful of links that we knew were clean and valuable.
Yeah, good point. We wished we could have all of the good links from the old domain, because there were some good ones, but just the overwhelming majority were not good. So it made more sense to start fresh and try again. So we did that, and after a few months, the traffic started to slowly increase. I have a chart here that is basically exactly what you want to see on a Google Analytics chart. It's starting low and is starting sort of the hockey stick movement upward, the upward trend. And so by June of 2014, this year, the traffic was a little over 100 uniques a day.
Yep.
And looking great. I'm like, whew, we got rid of that penalty. It's just like it's a new domain, starting to, have that upward movement. And then at the end of June, the traffic tanked again.
Yeah.
And this is where I folded up shop and I said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. This is too much work, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what was going on, but after doing some research, I discovered that it's very possible for a penalty to move, a Google penalty to move to a new domain, even though you've moved the domain and not moved the links. So even though I didn't do a 301 redirect, Google could still recognize that it's the exact same site, and the penalty from those old links still would affect that new domain, even though the links themselves weren't actually pointing to that domain.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, or it was to me anyway, to realize just how good of a picture Google has of your site. So this is a site where the URL was completely different. It had none of the old links, and we rebranded it. So we had a different theme, a different logo, but we had all the same content. And it seems as if for Google that was just a footprint, It says,
Yep.
We've seen all this content in this arrangement before, and we know that it had a penalty before.
Yep, which is very interesting indeed. A lot of people hadn't heard of that. I certainly had. And if anybody I'm not making this up. If anybody wants to read the research on seroundtable.com, it's a search engine news website. Barry Schwartz, very well known in the Google and search engine news industry, did an interview on video with John Mueller, one of the Google employees for Webmaster Central, on video stating exactly what I just said, that a penalty can move to a new domain even if the links are not redirected. So a Google employee has stated as such, and so it's my opinion, of course I can never know for sure exactly, it's my opinion that the old penalty was moved to my new domain even though I hadn't redirected the links. And so here I was at the end of June, July, now it's August, no movement. I'm getting maybe 20 uniques a day, just a few hits here and there of people. I actually sat down here on nichepursuits.com to write a, this is the end of the project post.
Yep.
I sat down to say, you know what, I tried all of these things. I want to give you this update. It's been 9 months since an update, and tell you what I tried, and unfortunately it's just not working. But something interesting happened as I started to do research on my domain. I pulled up the analytics, and you wouldn't believe it, but over the past 2 days, the site had grown 300% in traffic.
Yeah, which is just the most absurd timing.
Yeah, it was unbelievable, and I was racking my brain with what happened. We hadn't done anything for months to the site, but sure enough, the traffic had grown, 3 times in the past couple of days. And so I thought, something is going on here. And I still don't have confirmation of what is exactly going on, but basically the traffic went from, 20 uniques a day on up to I think I got 72 uniques a day, which is over 3 times just a couple of days later. Mm-hmm. And again, that doesn't sound like a ton of traffic. I know people listening out there are thinking, oh yeah, that's great. Spencer's getting 72 uniques a day to a site. I know it's not a huge deal. It's not a big moneymaker, right? But I've seen these trends before on older sites. Once these trends start, and if you truly are starting to get that Google love, it can only be a month or 2 before the traffic's significantly higher. Not just 72, but 300-400 uniques a day. So, and in fact, yesterday I've had the highest traffic day that I've had in a really long time. It got 105 uniques yesterday. Yeah. So that is up over 500% from just like 4 days ago. Yep. And so I'm encouraged by what I see. I'm excited. But what happened? Let's throw some opinions around, because Google, nobody knows exactly why Google starts ranking things and why they don't start ranking things. But I'm clearly starting to rank better for lots of long tail keywords. For my primary keyword, I won't say exactly where I am, but I'm within striking distance now. People are finding me. Whereas before I was nowhere. I was 500 plus. Now I'm a respectable rank in Google, and people are clearly finding me. My site is definitely making a comeback, but what are the reasons?
Yeah, and that is that was one of the most promising signs to me. We had been sitting. You had gone from page 1, rank 1, to 500 plus, which is, it can't be anything else but a Google penalty. There's no reason for you not to be above 500 unless Google has seen something that they like.
Yeah. And so, I sat here. When I saw that, of course, I was very excited, but I'm racking my brain with the fact that we really haven't done much to the site in a long time. And so I have a couple of theories. First is the fact that I submitted a disavow file to Google 9 months ago. And so the logical conclusion is that Google finally implemented that disavow links and no longer recognizes all those spammy links, and so my site is making a comeback. Yep. And I'm going to dig into that more. The second sort of point is just that lots of the spammy domains were clearly not real websites. They're probably just used for linking purposes, and lots of those sites probably expired, and so the links dropped off. And so many links are now gone that perhaps, my site is no longer penalized or seen as spammy. So kind of combination, I think for some reason the spammy links are no longer recognized by Google. And I think this fits very well into the timeline that other people are seeing as well. Because as I mentioned, my site was probably hit with Penguin 2.1 because of all the negative SEO and the spammy links. I got that penalty back in October 2013. There is a lot of chatter, and I was hoping that there would be some confirmation from Google by the time we recorded this podcast, but there is not. There's a lot of chatter, and including articles on seroundtable.com saying that many people believe that Penguin 3.0 was just released a couple of days ago. And if that is the case, that makes perfect sense because, again, John Mueller, the same Google employee, has stated publicly that if a site was hit with Penguin 2 or 2.1, they cannot recover from that penalty until the Penguin algorithm has been refreshed. It's just the way that it works. And so I believe that that's what happened to me. At least that's the story I'm telling myself at this point, okay? That I was hit with Penguin 2.1. There was no way I could recover until Penguin 3.0 came out. And even when Penguin 3.0 came out, I wouldn't recover unless I had disavowed all those links.
Right.
So I disavowed all those links, which was good, but it was 9 months before they refreshed that algorithm. And so I'm now seeing the benefits of what I did 9 months ago. Lots of other people are seeing this on forums and, like I said, search engine news websites. It's at least the rumor and chatter at this point, no confirmation from Google.
Yeah. I think our only other theory was that, we had disavowed the links, but then we moved the site all over the place a bunch of different times. So it could also be possible that the lift on the ban was just chasing the site around the internet,
Yep. Yeah, no, that's very true as well. So I don't know what it is. Hopefully this discussion gives some people some food for thought for their own websites. If they've received a penalty or simply if they're just building niche websites and concerned about negative SEO, they can kind of know the process that we've gone through. So, has the project been successful overall? I look at the earnings for the site up through October of 2013 when the site was doing well. It had earned a total of $3,821, which is great, a great return. Since that time, the site has only earned about $580 between November 2013 and August 26th, 2014. So, much smaller earnings over that time period. But in total, I've earned about $4,400 since I began the project. I believe it's still profitable, not a lot, but it's something. And the fact that I've been able to share everything publicly and hopefully people have learned from it, that's really the value that I've gained and that other people have gained from this project. So it hasn't been a huge financial success. Maybe it's put a couple $1,000s in my pocket, but the experience is really where the value comes in.
Yeah, so maybe as we start to wrap it up, what would be your advice to anybody who thinks that their site is being attacked from negative SEO?
I think that people should go through a similar process that I did. Of course, skip some of those mistakes, like don't do a 301 redirect. But the first line of defense, really, it has to be disavowing those links. Check your Google Webmaster Tools, and whenever you are seeing spammy-looking links come in, try to disavow those right away.
Yeah.
And perhaps even contact the websites directly if you can do that to ask those links be removed. Unfortunately, that's probably the best advice that I have. If your site is actually hit with a penalty, it definitely may be worth considering moving to a new domain to try and alleviate some of that penalty as well.
Yeah, and I think my overall advice too is, if it does happen, and it probably won't, and I don't think you should be afraid that it will, but if it does happen, take those 1 or 2 steps and then move on and keep working, because it happening to you twice, I think, is such a rare phenomenon that almost nobody should be afraid of it. But, the best thing you can do is keep working. That's what I did. My site got penalized, and the first thing I did was build a new site, So if if you are, I mean, it just takes too long. Like if you're waiting for Google to disavow your site, you can't spend 6 months worrying about it. You got to
Yeah.
keep working, keep making money.
Yep. No, I agree. So some of the takeaways here, lessons learned from this project and this experience so far. Number one, in my opinion, negative SEO is very real. I do believe that it can happen. Google has never really publicly said, yes, we believe, or, we have a huge problem with negative SEO, but I do believe it's real. But as stated, I also think that it's very rare and that most people will never come across this in their work building websites. Number two is don't share your URLs publicly with the wrong people. I think that's the reason my site was hit, not from some unknown person just trying to outrank me, but somebody read my blog and I shared my URL and they took advantage of that. So be very careful of who you're sharing your website with, and certainly your competition or other people that might have that capability. You don't want to go around sharing it with the wrong people. And then the third lesson is that I believe that the Google Disavow links tool is actually working. I don't know for sure, but at least that's my takeaway and my viewpoint at this point, late August of 2014, is that the Disavow links tool is actually working.
And I think I might add to be careful of the market, because I think that's what was my mistake, is that I got into a very profitable market, but as with any very profitable market, there's going to be a lot of spammers, So be wary of the market. I thought I was kind of safe. I thought that it wasn't too spammy, but I should have known when I looked at the competition that it was spammy, because there are a lot of spammers in the top results. So that should have been a red flag for me, and as I go on building more sites, I will definitely be looking for that type of thing in the future.
Yeah, that's a great tip, and I think I agree. Certain markets just have more spammers in them, and so if you can avoid those, obviously, payday loans and some of those well-known spammy markets, just avoid those, and be aware of who's ranking and types of sites, types of links that people in those markets tend to build. So great tip there. Overall for the project going forward, I'm going to kind of see what happens here over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to hope that I see a continued increase in traffic, and if I do, we're going to take a look at the little bit of earnings, where the site's ranking, and decide if I want to do a little bit more content or link building and put some more effort into the project. Hopefully I do. I hope that I can bring it back and earn some more money from it, not just for the earning of the money, but to show, hopefully publicly, that you can come back from negative SEO, that you can come back from a penalty and have that example site that people can follow. So that's the plans going forward. At this point, I haven't revealed the new domain. I'm well aware that people listening and reading my blog are very smart. Many of them are going to find it on their own. That's fine. I hope that they're nice people. But because of that, I'm probably going to just reveal the domain in a month or two anyways. Just because this started as a public project, I want to kind of stay true to my word that I'm going to reveal it once again. So in the future, this will be a domain that anybody and everybody can go back and look at and hopefully learn a lesson or two from.
For sure.
So other than that, that kind of wraps up our discussion here. Perrin and I have lots of exciting things going on in our business that I'm sure we'll be talking about in future podcasts. But we're working on a very large, authoritative website. We've seen some promising things happen there, gotten some great links in the past couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the process of creating a Kindle ebook, our product for that website. So we'll be talking about that more as well. And we're also in the process of hopefully buying another site or two. Some of the sites that we bought earlier this year, or at least one of them, is doing very well.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a record month by far this month. and I may be buying another site even as early as today. The auction is ending. So we'll have lots to talk about as far as buying websites, building websites, and probably some other business ventures in between. But anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think that covers it. And thanks, sir. I mean, this was a really, really good discussion in the comments this time. So it was, I think, one of our most popular in the past couple months. So thanks everybody for chiming in. And this is always a hot topic for us, and it definitely helps us understand things better when all of our really intelligent readers chime in and teach us stuff, which is one of the cool things about the blog.
Yep, absolutely. I know we've mentioned in the past, but I love the community that's on nichepursuits.com. People always have great comments. Like you said, I'm here to learn as well. I have learned a lot, and I share what I've learned, but certainly everybody has different experiences, and so we really appreciate people coming on and sharing their experiences, opinions, concerns, questions, whatever that may be. So if you're just listening to the podcast through audio, we love that. But if you want to come join the discussion over at nichepursuits.com, please do. We'd love to have you. So for everybody listening, thanks so much for doing so, and best of luck in your business.